welcome to Deep Dives with Dogs. Well, today's topic is kind of going to be the Estates General of France. The Estates General was this system that was set up during the time of the French monarchy that was a time of crisis kind of thing where you would get three groups from the three main sectors of the country. So you'd have the nobility being the first estate. The second estate would be the clergy. Okay. And then the third estate would be everyone else. Now, it's in theory, the system could have worked. In theory, it didn't, but it could have. Um, and it's more meant as a crisis thing to make hard decisions and stuff like that. It hadn't been called for a while by the time of the French Revolution, but it had been used before. It is a system that had worked in the past. The idea of it, it's going to sound goofy now, but the idea of it is okay. You have three estates. They're not always going to agree on everything. So maybe there can be things that can be passed that, well, maybe the first estate doesn't like, but the second and third do, or the third estate doesn't like, but the first and second do, and that kind of thing. Well, the issue arises when the first and second estate, the wealthiest sections, just only agree with each other. And that's where a lot of problems arise, especially in this time where it's the time right before the French Revolution, where the third estate and the first two estates as well, they all have one vote. It only counts towards one, not two, not three, which you can see where the issue arises. If the third estate disagrees with the first two estates on everything, because it's not good for the regular citizen, the first two estates can just bulldoze any of the uh, things. They could just bulldoze it, and then the third estate will have no say, which is exactly what happens before the French Revolution. They just don't let them do anything. And this obviously causes quite the issue. If most of the people in the country do not agree with the things that the richest, the 1% basically do, it's actually more like the maybe top 5% of people, but first two estates are probably the most, probably 5, maybe 10% of the people in the nation. But either way, if they don't agree with it, well, the third estate, they just have to accept it. There's actually another problem, really, with the Estates General as well, in that it doesn't really have any power. At the end of the day, it is an absolute monarchy. The king had last say in everything. Now, the Estates General is more of an advisory board then in that regard, but it also is like, well, what if, let's say, two estates agree together? So the second and third, let's say, the poor, let's say they get what they want. The king can just say, nah, I don't really feel like it. That is kind of what the Estates General ended up being a lot of times, because the king does have ultimate say. He is the ruler. He is the leader. Now, the Estates General is to call in times of crisis, but the king doesn't necessarily have to listen, which of course kind of defeats the purpose. If they can't make any meaningful change, then like, what's the point? Then it's kind of useless, and you kind of see that. Things get so bad that eventually the third estate is actually just straight up kicked out in 1798. They're locked out of Versailles, and so they go and make their own little section. They go to a tennis court where they make this oath that, hey, we won't leave until we have a constitution for our nation, which eventually will lead straight to the French Revolution. First, you got to go through with the Terror, which the whole beheading time of the Revolution, but yeah, you'll eventually just get the entire French Revolution because the Estates General just doesn't work. It was a moment of you could have avoided this crisis, but instead you drove it right into it. But what can you do? The dumb will be dumb. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys like the video, leave a like. If you have any ways you can improve these videos, leave a comment down below. I just appreciate feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.